Hello and welcome back to the building of the Keelcraft Ladybird. Somebody asked me via the YouTube what was happening next with this project, because I think I'd inspired them to actually build one at the same time, and he said he'd almost caught up. And I said, oh, there's a few things to do, and one of them was I needed to sort out a fuel tank for the plane before actually coaling this area here. And by chance at the weekend I was at a local swap meet and I couldn't believe my luck when I stumbled on a bag of bits, and these are all part made fuel tanks for diesel models, control line probably, but for diesel models. And out of the bag I've found a perfect tank size, I think, for this project. It's as big as I can fit in here, and there's the other part to it. Of course I don't have to fill it up, but I'd like the option to have an extended run. Hopefully, if everything goes well, I'll want to fly this in the air longer than just a couple of minutes. So I'm going to try something now that I haven't done. I've actually worked it out since I was 11, so it's 50 years ago, and that is to do some tin plate soldering, and that's what we're going to do now. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Well, let's have a look at the component parts. This is the top side, and there's two holes, a filler and a vent, and I've cut a couple of pieces of copper piping which I had left over from when I was building steam boilers and steam plants, and I've made them extra long because they need to protrude through the top of the cowl. We'll clean them up in a moment. Then there's the base with a tube that fits in something like that, and I think what I'll do is I'll fit this one first. Now, from what I remember, it's all about getting a nice clean surface. So I've got a fibre pen, not a carbon pen, a fibre pen. I'm going to clean round the surface. And then dry fit this. And what I'll do is I'll paint some flux around the joint. I could really do with a bigger soldering iron than this. Will see if it's up to the job. I don't know. It's only a 30 watt. It would be a lot easier with a bigger one. I suspect this video might end, but we'll see. Don't know unless you try. So I've fluxed round there, and then we'll wait for that to heat up, and while we do, I'll dry fit these, see if they fit in. Yep, I'll leave that long as well. Let's clean the end up. So we don't want bits of copper going into the engine, do we? That's not going to do it a lot of good. Just round that off a little bit so we're not going to cut the fuel piping, and take the tarnish off this so that the flux and solder have a nice clean surface. What I do remember from 50 years ago is that you have to get it clean. All soldering requires that. I know when I was silver soldering, you had to acid dip stuff to get it happy with that. That'll fit in like that. That one like that. Yeah. I'll clean this one up. Okay. It's not warm enough yet. We'll pause it until it heats up and then we'll see how we go. Hopefully the soldering iron's warmed up enough. What I've done is I've gone round all the edges that I'm going to solder with the fibre pen and also a little nail file here just to clean it up. And I'm going to first of all apply a little bit of flux. I need to get some more of this. I've only had it about 40 years, it's running out. So I'm applying flux round the joint and the tubing, and I'm ensuring that it's touching the base. And as I said, I don't know whether this iron's going to have enough punch. We'll see. The solder I'm using, it's an old stash that I have. It's the real deal in that it contains lead. I know it's not environmentally friendly, but it solders much better than the safer, environmentally safer and biologically safer alternative, but it just doesn't solder as well. So until this runs out, I'll keep using it. So I'm applying some solder to the iron. I know that's not the way you would really do it. The trick is really to feed it into the it may go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use, bear with me, a couple of bits of balsa wood to hold everything in place, because this thing's going to get hot and I won't be able to hold it. So I'm applying some heat here. Yeah, it's going to go. It's going to go. Well, I think actually that has formed a seal, but I'm going to add a little bit more solder to it while it's warm. And I'll check whether it's come through on the other side. Oh, so to my surprise, I think this iron's going to be hot enough. We'll see when it comes to the body of the tank. Happy with that. There we go. Let that cool down. It's going to be hot to handle. The next part will be to put the filler and the breather into the top. Same thing, applying some flux around the joint. This is less critical because it's obviously at the top of the tank, but I still would like a proper seal. Once again, I don't want to burn my fingers, so I'll hold it like this. Don't know if the camera will pick that up, but you can hear the sizzling of the flux. It's obviously not hot enough until that burns off. Well, things starting to warm up now. That's not quite as neat as the other one, but if that happens, which it might do here, what I would normally do is stop what I'm doing, let it cool down, clean it up, reflux it, and then apply more heat. It's only soft solder. That's good. If you're doing hard solder, it's always more difficult to resolder it because the remelt temperature is a little bit higher than the initial temp. You can get into a whole world of pain. I think that's it actually, but I'm going to double check. I may apply a bead on the inside just to make sure. It's a good job this is concealed, it's not the prettiest. This on the other hand I'm quite happy with. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So that's, yep, that's that done. Right, I'm going to pause it there, let that cool down, and then we'll try tacking it, but I've got a suspicion this iron isn't going to be hot enough. Let's see. I'm going to tack this together now. I'm not trying to form a seam at the moment. In each corner. I suspect the issue with the upper tubing was because it's copper rather than brass. It seems to absorb a bit more heat. Because this is going on nicely onto the tin. Yeah, 50 years ago, Mr. Ellis, what a battle axe, taught me how to use a soldering iron, and we made a pocket money jar. Or money container. That was the first thing we did with a soldering iron. What a so-and-so he was. Old metalwork teachers were a law unto themselves. Even the staff were frightened of them. I should know, I ended up working with them. So this is going nicely into the corners. And I've just thought actually it's a little bit like applying plastic covering. You tack it down in the corners and then work in between. That's what I'm trying to do here. And then running it along. That's forming a seam. That seems to be working. I'll test it by filling it with some water and blowing it. Oh, actually no, better idea would be to put it under water and blow into it and see if I get any air bubbles, wouldn't it? So I filled, I hope you can see, I've put a little tack in each corner and in the middle. I'm going to keep working my way around, and then eventually I'll flow between the joints, and hopefully it'll form a nice seam. I'm guessing that this is about 20mm. Mark Robinson did a little video recently where he was testing out the tank. I suppose I could do the same thing. Of course you can always just measure what you put in, can't you? Right, so all the way around now it's tacked. And now all I'm going to do while it's still warm, putting some solder on, is running up to form a seam. And because I'm holding it with the balsa blocks, I can keep it pressed in so it doesn't spring apart. I'm applying a little bit more solder onto the iron, not because I'm particularly wanting to add more solder at the joint, it just helps the transfer of heat. Slowly moving it along. Quite happy with that joint there. Just have to do the sides and the top part and we are done. I think that looks as good as the ones that you buy. I don't know where these came from. I suspect it was from a company that was somebody's bought up a little cottage industry. There were bags of them. I got the last bag. The chap said. Bit of a sales pitch, I think. It's always fun going to swap meets if you ever get the opportunity. Even if you don't buy, it's a nice place to meet people. I've found the case with any sort of get together like that, you find like-minded souls, you meet people you haven't seen in a long time. It's a chance to catch up, a little bit of gossip. One more bit to do. Into this corner. I can still feel the heat going through the wood. You know, and wood is a very poor conductor of heat. It's a good insulator, but I can still feel the heat coming through the... I think it needs a bit more so down that corner. I think that I'm calling done. Let it cool down, we'll have a close look at it. But I think that's done the job. There's some touch at the moment. We'll come back when it's all cooled down nicely. So that's it cleaned up, and with a scourer, because the flux is very corrosive and it'll carry on eating into metal if left. And when I actually tried it underwater and pressurised, put a syringe on and pressurised it, there's a slight leak here. So now I know where it is. I'm going to reapply heat and flux along here and see if I can get a better joint. It's not critical because it's the top of the tank, but I do want it sealed. So I'll redo this part here and then I'll check again. So that's the repair done. I added a fillet into here. I've retested it and that's airtight now. So it's ready to put into the plane. Let's have a look. So it's going to go in here. These can be trimmed once it's all been installed. That's going to give a nice, push it over to that side. Might even put it at an angle, I don't know. Bring the tubing round, and the next installment I'll be completing this cowling area, installing the engine, fuel proofing it and putting the cowl on, and that'll be the next section that we look at. Hope that was informative, brings back some memories for me, including the horror of Mr. Ellis's metalwork lessons, but at least I remembered how to do it. It's only been 50 years. Take care now. If you haven't done so, please subscribe. You can keep in touch with how we get on with this. And if you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. That just helps my ego. Take care, everybody. Bye now.